move on to discuss the Cincinnati Bengals. Zac Taylor and these Cincinnati Bengals have dropped to 4-8, and it hasn't been that huge of a discussion, but I will bring it up on whether or not Zac Taylor, should he be keeping his job? This is a Cincinnati Bengals team that has vastly underperformed compared to what we thought of them entering this season. And look, historically, under the Zac Taylor reign, this Cincinnati Bengals team has struggled to start off their year. You look at the years that they reached that Super Bowl and reached that second AFC championship, they started off the year on a losing way and, with losing records through their first 4, 5, 6 games of the season. And it's been a consistent theme of what Cincinnati has been under Zac Taylor. Even in the years that they're good and bad, they've gotten off to bad starts. And this season, we're expecting them to be good. They get off to a bad start, and we're thinking, okay, they can just turn it on. And they just never got that consistency. They had good moments, this season. Oh, you look at that, the game against, well, quite frankly, no, they haven't really had that good of moments, actually. They've lost to any decent team that they've played this season, honestly. So, I mean, you lose to Kansas City, you lose to the Commanders, you beat the Panthers, you lose to the Ravens, you beat the Giants, you beat the Browns, you lose to the Eagles, you lose to the Ravens, you lose to the Chargers, you lose to the Steelers. Yeah, I mean, every decent team they've played, they've lost to, and I think it's been the same theme in every single game that they've lost against good teams. You give up 44 to the Steelers. You give up 34 to the Chargers. You give up 35 to the Ravens. You give up 37 to the Eagles. You give up 41 to the Ravens again. You give up 38 to the Commanders. You don't win games when your defense is just that awful. There's a record of Bengals. I need to pull it up, though, in terms of points scored in losses this season. It's the Bengals are 2-4 when scoring 33 or more points this season. The rest of the NFL, when they've scored 33 or more points this season, is 52-1. Let me get that straight. The rest of the NFL has the rest of the NFL teams that scored 33 more points this season are 52-1. The Cincinnati Bengals are 2-4. Let me reword this to make it even more mind-boggling. There's only been 5 games this season where a team has scored more than 33 points this season and lost. 4 of those 5 games, the Cincinnati Bengals lost. If that gets to your head a little bit better, that's just crazy. That's just unbelievable. It's been brutal this season for the Bengals. They're defensively they're 31st in the NFL in points allowed, despite the fact that their offense is in the top 5 in terms of points scored. They've only they're 4-8. And their quarterback, Joe Burrow, he's remarkable this season. You look at the statistics. He's at the top or near the top in every major statistical category. I believe he's number 1 in passer rating, number 1 in passing yards, and number 1 in touchdowns. He's only thrown for 5 interceptions. So you can't even say he's turning the ball over at a ridiculous rate. Now, there has been some inopportune turnovers in certain moments in the game, but those mistakes are only being exasperated by the fact that the Bengals defense has been so awful that any mistake that Joe Burrow is making is magnified at the highest level. Because for the Cincinnati Bengals to win win football games this season with the way that the defense has been, number 1, Joe Burrow has to play an absolutely amazing game, like a ridiculously amazing game, and he cannot make any mistake. and that's just, that's just impossible. This is impossible. That's, you're asking, you know, look, okay, it's not impossible, but it's just highly, highly unlikely. And yeah, Zac Taylor, he is an offensive head coach, and at the end of the day, we do judge him by how the offense looks. But when you're the head coach, you're the overseer for everything. And I'm really really surprised with how bad the defensive unit has looked. Louis Anarumo, in my opinion, was a really impressive defensive coordinator, and I thought it was a guy that deserved more running for head coaching positions in the past few years, especially when that Bengals defense was playing that elite football that we've seen them play in those runs to the Super Bowl and AFC Championship. But man, oh man, this is much different defense. This defense is a defense that gives up way too many big plays. They can't stop the bleeding. They give up way too many yards allowed. They're just not good. They're just not good, honestly. They couldn't stop a Colt. They couldn't stop a Colt. They can't stop the run. They can't stop the pass. It's just pick your poison. It's pick your poison against the Cincinnati Bengals team defensively, and in opportune moments, they're not being able to make the play that stop needed. That's the most devastating part, is that in the moments where you just need them to make that one stop to get the Bengals back into the game or to get the Bengals to victory, they haven't been able to make it. There's no clutch factor with this defense. There's defensive, even with some of the terrible defenses Patrick Mahomes carried early on in his career, they all had that. What's the word? That Chiefs defense at least had that ability where they, when they needed to make that one stop to get Mahomes the ball back, or when they just needed to make that one stop to win the game, they had the ability to do that. This Bengals defense, they can't even make that one clutch stop. It's just horrendous. And individually, the players are not awful on that side of the ball. I have to say, we know what Sam Hubbard is. Sam Hubbard. I'm forgetting a player. What's his name? What's their star? Trey Hendrickson. Cam Taylor-Britt, I think he's a solid cornerback. Jermaine Pratt. These are not bad players. Mike Hilton. But no, they're, as a unit, they've just been awful. And we know Luciano Romo, he likes to send pressure, and he's putting his cornerbacks in positions where they're having to defend one-on-one in certain times, and they're just getting absolutely melted. And going back to Zac Taylor, yes, he's not a defensive head coach, and he's, at the end of the day, offensive head coaches will be judged by the offense. But when you're a head coach, you're an overseer of the whole football team. And I think the Bengals have been a product of the quarterback and the talent, not a product of the coaching staff. When you look at the Cincinnati Bengals team and you see them play offense, you don't see a creative guru that's scheming guys open, this unstoppable run game. No, you see essentially really great backyard football with extremely great talented players like Joe Burrow, like Jamar Chase, like T. Higgins, like Tyler Boyd in the past. You're seeing really good backyard football. You don't see a great scheme and a great unit. You don't see that offensively. So in my opinion, what does Zac Taylor provide? He's not getting his guys motivated and riled up enough for these games. We see what they look like. They're 4-8. They're just losing football games. At the end, they're making plays and collapsing. They're not making those clutch stops. They're not making. It's just nothing is working. It's just nothing is working. And And it's now multiple years now in the last couple of years where they haven't been able to get it together as a unit. They're consistently getting off to a bad start. They just need that fresh voice in there, to come in, to bring some new life, to shift the momentum back into the right direction. They just need a new voice. And with certain coaches, like you go to San Francisco and how they've been this season, it's Kyle Shanahan. Look, the 49ers, they're not going to fire Kyle Shanahan because at the end of the day, that offense, what he provides to that offense is extremely valuable. That scheme that he has provided to this 49ers team and, turned around that franchise. You can say the Bengals have turned around as a franchise with the addition of Zac Taylor, but is it because of that scheme? Is it because of his offense? No, it's because of the incredible talent of some of the players that they've been able to get, that they've been able to draft, that have fallen into the hands, like a Joe Burrow, like a Jamar Chase. Not because of Zac Taylor and the scheme. So I think getting in a new voice, potentially, if you can, bringing in a guy like Bill Belichick to coach Joe freaking Burrow and Jamar Chase, and he will completely change this defense into a way formidable outfit. I still think there is some talent there. I think that would make Cincinnati skyrocket to the top in terms of legitimate AFC contenders for next season. But yeah, we'll see. I still think with how incompetent this Bengals ownership is, I think it will have to take a major disappointing season for the Bengals to release Zac Taylor. It'll probably take a 4-13 or a 5-11, and even or 5-12, or even then I don't know, because they are a really cheap, incompetent ownership group. But it's a conversation that should be had more. I really think it should be discussed a little bit more. You don't get to live off that Super Bowl forever.